Today on Inspiration, we're talking with fashion legend Jenny Bannister. Thanks so much for joining us, Jenny. Well, I just wanted to start off with you're a fashion legend as you've had a stamp commemorated in your name, which must be extremely exciting. But what led up to you getting that stamp? Can you just tell us a bit about your history of your career?
Well, I'm in my fourth phase now of my career. And when I got the stamp, I was in my third phase. I started out in Chapel Street in the 70s doing recycled denim. I moved into black nightclub wear. Somewhere along the way in between there I was doing art clothes in leather and plastic. And then I fell into evening wear in the late 80s and stayed in evening wear until I retired at the end of 2009. And I was honoured with the stamp in 2005 when I was doing the evening wear.
It must have been a really exciting time for you, and to actually be one of the Australia's fashion treasures and legends. What characteristics do you think that you have that have made you last so long in such a flighty industry?
I think following my own heart has kept me going. The support of my husband. I realised I didn't have time for many friends. Now that I've pulled back a bit and I'm in phase 4, I've actually had time for friends, and I've really liked that, and I'm much more out there now. But I think my survival is due to me being outspoken, innovative, with a real sort of sense of getting on with things.
And for somebody young or wanting to get into the fashion industry, how do you suggest they do it?
Well, times have changed and fashion is going so fast now that I look at the young kids now and I think, God, I'm glad I'm not starting now. But they've been brought up in a computer world, so they look at things differently to me. But we've got all these different ideas. We've got, pollution, greenhouse emissions, cheap labour offshore, industrial relations here, people not wanting to actually put their shoulder to the wheel, basically. Nobody wants to get down and do the sewing or the pattern making. They all just want to be rich and famous. And that's not how you do fashion.
That's right, it's quite a labour intensive. You need to understand how it's cut, how to put garments together. You need to understand how to design. You also need to know your customer, and you need to know what they want and be able to follow the trends and be creative after all that.
And you've got to be, of course, making something that people need, not want, need. That's why I did evening wear. I went into a niche market towards the end of my career because they needed it.
I remember your fabulous shop on Chapel Street with all the evening dresses. I think I might have bought a couple of things or two there. Can you just let us know some of the styles and your inspiration in designing and where you get that from?
With evening wear, because it was a new area for me in the late 80s, a boutique owner actually approached me and she said, I'm opening a shop and it's all going to be evening wear because there's a huge demand. My daughter's at Furbank and there's St Catherine's and Morriston and all the rest of them, and they all need a beautiful dress for the school dance. And their 21st and their engagement, and there's nothing out there, and I know you can do it.
Oh yeah, I remember it was, I think a lot of the girls at my school dance, or maybe even me included, got some dresses from you. And you're wearing a fabulous Made in Australia necklace. You can tell us a bit about where you got that, but is that something that's important to you, that we buy Australian made?
Yeah, and I had this especially made about 5 years ago because I could see the cheap imports coming in from offshore, and it was affecting our industry here greatly. It was putting people out of work. People were closing down their factories. It was getting really hard for designers here to go and get their clothes made. So it was really affecting me. So I had this specially made by Metal Couture, William Newell and Griffiths. He made it for me in about 3 days. And I wore it to Government House one year for the L'Oreal Melbourne Fashion Festival, because I knew there's lots of photos happening in press and TV, and you know, this was the sign to say, you know, look at where it's being made, pay attention.
What do you think about Zara coming to Australia?
I think it's a really good kick in the pants for all the other
Yeah.
cheap importers here, because they go overseas and copy Zara.
Yep.
So now that we've got the real Zara here, but whether the quality's any good, I haven't actually been overseas to a real Zara since I was in Lisbon, but I've got to get into the store yet. I've got to get through the madding crowd of teenagers, you know, elbowing each other, and by the time I get there they probably won't have my size. And another thing with all those things is, will the quality be good? But it's not made in China. I've had friends who were at the press launch a few days ago, and they were all looking at the country of origin inside the garments on the labels, and it's Bangladesh, Portugal, Spain, India, and I don't think they saw any China, because China's gone up in price.
It's too expensive here.
The labour's going up, yeah. You know, but as all these third world countries become rich, you know, we're probably going to be the banana republic, the cheap place, but we can't even sew. So, you know, what are we going to turn into? What jobs are there going to be for people?
Yeah. It's very difficult for the fashion industry, I think, because there isn't, even as everything is getting more and more expensive, and as we have a growing population, we don't have the infrastructure to, even if we wanted to bring it back to made in Australia, we don't have the manufacturing to do it. You've recently retired, and you've been putting back, like what we've been talking about a lot about Australian fashion industry, you've been putting a lot of your time and effort back into the charities for it. So you're doing a charity called Fashion Talk and events. What are they? Fashion Talk events, what are they?
Well, Fashion Talk is a weekly chat show with my co-host Philip Boone, and Philip and I got together last year and decided there was a need for a group where we could all get together and talk about fashion, anything to do with fashion. Though it could be photography, public relations, makeup artists, not actually just design. It's all about getting together and networking, and from it all sorts of, you know, things have come to fruition, which has been really, really encouraging for us.
It seems like you're super busy for someone who's retiring, and I thank you so much for sparing some of your busy time to talk with us today.
Thank you very much, Katrina. It was lots of fun.
And until next time, be inspired. If you would like any more information on any of the tips or segments you've seen on today's show, please go to our website www.inspirationalwomen.tv.